Self-sabotage doesn't always look like procrastination or negative self-talk. It's much sneakier than that. It's when you can't bear the quiet moments and that you always need music, scrolling or a show to soothe yourself because being in silence feels too uncomfortable. It also looks like overworking, falling for people you feel like you constantly need to fix, starting little conflicts because everything feels too good to be true, downplaying your wins, spending more time preparing than actually taking action, and saying yes when you want to say no. These are all forms of self-sabotage, and if any of these sound familiar, then this video is for you, because by the end of this video you'll know exactly what self-sabotage is, how to recognize it, where it comes from, and most importantly, how to finally stop getting in your own way. So take a deep breath, put your phone down for a second and take notes. So what is self-sabotage? Self-sabotage is when you know something is not right for your life, but instead of facing it, you decide to avoid it. Instead, you have solved the problem because it feels more manageable. But deep down, you know you're not really dealing with it. And instead, you fill the gap with what's comfortable, familiar, or bearable. And basically, you're doing everything to avoid discomfort. And the reason why is because your brain is wired to protect you from pain, even if that means keeping you stuck in the same patterns that unconsciously hurt you. Brianna Weiss explained this perfectly in a book, The Mountain Is You, where she says that self-sabotage can take up many different forms, like for example perfectionism, because it gives you a reason not to start, fear of failure, because if you don't try, nobody will judge you, also downplaying your success because you're afraid of threatening others, slowing down because, well, if you do so, you'll have to face yourself, and worrying about worst case scenarios because it gives you a sense of control, but in the end it's actually controlling your life. There are countless ways of how it can show up, and it can affect all areas of your life: your work, your relationships, your friendships, and even how you treat yourself. And for me personally, it took me years to realize that overworking, wanting to fix people, and wanting to control everything were my own forms of self-sabotage. For so long, I was trapped in the same patterns because I knew that if I stopped, I had to face myself and the pain that I had been avoiding. But eventually, I found the courage to do it. I stopped overworking, I stopped wanting to save people that didn't want to be saved, and when I stopped all these self-sabotaging behaviors, I finally made space for good things to happen in my life. What I didn't realize at the time was that I had only scratched the surface because I hadn't dealt with the deeper issues underneath, and that's why the self-sabotaging behaviors kept showing up, because you can't just stop a bad habit and expect everything to fall into place. You can't keep running from yourself because those self-sabotaging behaviors, they will always find a way back. Now that you know what self-sabotage is, let's talk about why it happens. From my own experience and what I've seen in others, self-sabotage usually happens from unresolved trauma. And that is when something in your past hurt you deeply, like betrayal, like abandonment, rejection, or failure, and your brain created a pattern to protect you from ever feeling that pain ever again. But that protection eventually becomes a prison, because you start building walls so high that were meant for your protection, but they're now keeping you stuck. And that's why the first step is radical honesty with yourself. So ask yourself, what am I scared of? What am I protecting myself from? And since when am I feeling like this? Then ask yourself, do I still need to protect myself from this? And usually the answer is no, but you'll only see that once you face the wounds underneath. Because underneath every self-sabotaging behavior is a younger version of you that didn't feel seen, safe, or loved. And whether you realize it or not, you've been protecting her ever since. But now it's time to stand up for her. Now let's talk about how to overcome self-sabotage step by step. Once you have identified where the pain is rooted, you need to face it. I'm sorry to tell you this, but there's no other way around it, and trust me, I've tried. This might mean confronting the people linked to that pain, or saying the things you never got to say. This might also mean forgiving them, not for them, but for you. Because forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, but freeing yourself truly from the weight they left behind. When I started this process, I reached out to the people who had hurt me, and I even reached out to the people who I hadn't spoken to in years, and some apologized, some didn't, and some didn't even understand why I was bringing it up after all these years. But here's what I want you to remember when you do this. Their reaction isn't your responsibility. Your only job is to speak your truth and release what's been living inside of you. But when you do, you have to make sure it's fact-based and not emotion-based, Also be specific and avoid staying vague. Tell them exactly what happens and how it affected you. This won't be easy. It wasn't easy for me either. I even backed out multiple times before finally doing it, and afterwards I even questioned if I had done the right thing. But a week or so later I felt lighter. The resentment wasn't sitting on my chest anymore. I really felt like I was reliving finally. So if you're wondering where to start, you need to remember that there is no perfect way. Whether it's a text, a call, an email, a voice note, a letter, it doesn't matter. The medium doesn't matter. What matters is that you take action now, because you don't know how much time you've left, and your inner peace deserves to be your number one priority. And I'm telling you this because I confronted everyone except for one person, my biological father, because unfortunately he passed away before I was even old enough to have an adult conversation with him. Even though I had an amazing childhood with my mom and adoptive father who raised me like his own and who I truly consider like my dad, there are parts of my life I will never truly understand, because I never got the chance to truly get to know my biological father that well, because I was too young and I never got the chance to ask him the questions I wanted to ask him and that only he could answer. And that sat with me for a very long time. But eventually I had to make peace with it, because you can't change the past. And I'm telling you this because if you can still do something about it, well, do it. Talk now before it's too late, because life's too short to carry unresolved pain and resentment. Second step is to reclaim your identity. This is a very important part, because your self-sabotage doesn't only protect you from your wounds, it also protects the identity you built around them. If your identity is built around being the struggler, the victim, the one who has always bad luck, then healing those wounds will actually feel like a threat. And if you're not the struggler anymore, then who are you? And that's why part of healing is rewriting your identity. For me, that meant learning to stop running from myself because I was brave enough, to speak up even if my voice shook because I wasn't a victim, and to rest without guilt because I wasn't a hustler. The final step in overcoming self-sabotage is forgiveness and release, because you might not get closure, you might not get an apology nor an explanation, and that has to be okay, because you're not doing it for them, you're doing it to free yourself. So cry if you need to, then forgive yourself for holding onto that pain for so long, because real closure comes from when you finally stop letting pain dictate your life. If you want to dive deeper, I'll leave a link below to The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest, because it's truly life-changing and I highly recommend it. And if this video helps you, make sure to subscribe. I post one video a week about how to become 1% better and build a life that feels like yours again. If you're serious about that, your next step is figuring out who you are and what you want in life. So if you want to do that, watch this video next. It will help you figure out how to reach your goals without losing yourself.